I would like to call this meeting of the Evesham Township Board of Education to order. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate public notice has been given by the Secretary of the Evesham Township Board of Education in the following manner. Posting written notice on the official bulletin board at the Board of Education office, emailing written notice to the Burlington County Times and the Courier Post, filing written notice with the municipal clerk of Evesham Township. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Capello.
Here.
Mrs. Everhart.
Here.
Mr. Fizzicaro.
Here.
Mr. Canton.
Here.
Mrs. Knoll. Mr. Lanzalata.
Here.
Miss Lee.
Here.
Mr. Megan. Mrs. Ryan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, at this time, I will ask for a motion to go into executive session and a motion to approve items 2.1 through 2.4, whereas the Board of Education of Evesham Township has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain matters which are exempted from the public, and whereas the regular meeting of the Board of Education will reconvene following the end of the closed session at approximately 7:30 p.m. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education will go into session for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10-4-12, items 2.1 through 2.4. Do I have a motion? Mr. Fizzicaro, Mr. Lanzalata. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capello.
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart.
Yes.
Mr. Fizzicaro.
Yes.
Mr. Canton.
Yes.
Mr. Lanzalata.
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll see everyone at approximately 7:30. I would like to resume this meeting of the Evesham Township Board of Education. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, Board Member Jeff Lanzillotta will read the mission statement.
The mission of the Evesham Township School District is to promote excellence in an environment that engages students in meaningful learning experiences. In partnership with students, dedicated staff, families, and community, the district provides a strong educational foundation that will empower our students to achieve their unique potential, embrace self-directed lifelong learning, develop the skills necessary for appropriate risk-taking and responsible decision-making, respect themselves and others, problem solve individually and collaboratively, and become contributing members of a diverse global society.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzillotta. At this point in time, we're going to be moving into presentations. Dr. Smith, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. And they did it virtually this year. Thank you, Mr. Donahue. They did it virtually this year, although I'll put this camera on just for the. Hello, there we go. We live stream too, so this way the live stream picks up the voice better. So it was virtual this year. And for us, this is it's such a leadership opportunity for these students. They're selected by their schools. I know that the administrators at the schools put a lot of time into figuring out which student to select, someone who's going to be able to be a voice for the board members who are listening in, because kind of the purpose behind this opportunity is to help the board members on all of our boards. We have 40 school districts in the county, and the board members in all those districts try to be able to look and understand the student experience through different windows. So these two students are opening windows for board members. They're opening windows for administrators through their contributions during this dialogue. And so from DeMacy Middle School, if she's here, we have Melanie DiMiola. Come on down, Melanie. Awesome. And Mrs. Ryan and Mr. Kanthan's going to join me for some handshakes and a photo or two. Ms. McGulick. So first of all, that's your certificate.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Very, very awesome. And I see Mr. Romanelli. No, it can't. Okay. All right. Thank you for being here, though, in support. And then, do you have a cheering section there? It looks like. All right, awesome. Cheering section, come on down if you want. We'll do a picture, all of us, okay? Any of you that would like to come down? See, is Dad here? Looks like Dad and Mom.
Yeah.
Sis, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The whole DiMiola clan coming down. It's great, right? Isn't it so great? It's so great. It's awesome. It's awesome.
How are you?
Come on in. Please. All right. Oh, great, Tracy. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. It's fantastic. And then from Marlton Middle School, Ariana Catrew, she's here. Ariana, come on down. And it's doesn't go unacknowledged that out of the students represented tonight, we scored 100%. We had both students here. That's awesome. And then I see, is Dr. Ganji, are you back there taking pictures? Oh, all right, Mom, come on down, come on down. Thank you. And Mr. Hoffman, thank you. I just shout out there as well. Dr. Ganger, if you could stay up for just 1 second, since you're here, just because we're not to the donations part yet, but just to save you the trip to come, please come down, is so the India Temple Association, of which Dr. Ganju is the vice president, made a very generous donation to our district, which is in our agenda tonight and will be approved. And you change hats from mom to member, but thank you so much for the donation. And
You have been amazing. Tuition has been a home for us. And
oh, that's so nice.
Thank
I'm so glad.
you.
So glad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
At this point in time, we're going to move to 4.2, tentative 2022-23 budget presentation.
Anyone who is here for the student recognition portion, you are absolutely welcome to stay. We have a full agenda. It's actually fun and informative. And if you would also like to go off to more fun things, you're welcome to. We will not take offense, okay? So usually when there's like a larger group of students and they all leave together, it's easier to kind of like anonymously blend in and walk out. So I just want you to know you have our full blessing and joy if you decide to head out too. So tentative budget presentation. This will look familiar to our preliminary budget presentation, which we did last month. Just as a reminder, ETSD, Go Big or Go Home, we do 3 budget presentations. Some districts do 1, a few do 2, we do 3. And Mr. Donahue's going back to dim the lights a little bit. A little bit of history. Our budget this year, just shy of $79 million. If you go back in time a bit, you can see that our budget 2 years ago was higher than the one that we're recommending this spring. And if you go back to 2018-19, it was pretty much the same amount as our budget now. So basically 5 years ago, our budget was the same amount that it is for next year. Enrollment. That top number, that peak number of 5436, we'll come back to that in a second, but because that number plays a role in why we are losing funding over 7 years. Currently, we're in year 4 of that 7-year sequence. State aid, and you can see in the middle column there where the budgeted state aid has diminished each year, starting especially 4 years ago, and we are now down to less than half of the state aid that we received in the year 2009-2010. Why are we losing state funding? It was when the funding formula was recalculated, commonly known as S2. About a third of the districts in the state are S2 districts. Disproportionately, S2 districts are in Burlington County, and disproportionately in the Lenape region. And part of that is because enrollments in this local area, not just in Evesham, but in some of our neighboring towns, have also decreased. So if you think back to that, that number from about a decade ago, when our enrollment was 1,000 students higher than it is now. So that drop in enrollment has led to a drop in funding. As well, municipal property wealth, basically, you know, the sort of the commercial value of our town has grown in that time, which also, in the state's calculations, leads to reduced school funding for us, and the personal wealth of individuals has increased, which is another factor that leads to reduced state aid. So when you look at all three of those factors, Evesham checks all three of those boxes for why our aid is dropping, which is why we have the dubious distinction of, in our county, for the 22-23 school year, we are losing more dollars than any other district but one. But I would say it's very apples to oranges, because that other district is an Abbott district, which gets tremendous amount of funding from the state. So while that district is losing more, that district is getting $70 million in funding. We get $7 million in funding. So when we lose $1.5 million, and we were only getting $9 million the year prior, that's a tremendous drop, right? In terms of a percentage decrease, our state funding heading into 22-23 is decreasing at a greater rate than all but 3 other school districts in our county. And those 3 school districts are very small. If you put their student populations together, they don't equal even half of our district. So, and the final result is we're looking right now at, when the dust settles on this 7-year reduction sequence, we will have lost $7.6 million, shown through this chart. So we're not quite out of the tunnel yet. This year, $1.5 million, and then, you know, because we're always thinking, you know, beyond the next corner. So as we do think about the year beyond this year, that thinking includes an anticipated $1 million, roughly $1 million decrease in state aid. Some other factors. Chapter 44 loss. Increased personnel costs, inflation, and then, to be honest, like one of the, it's on the slide because it's just so recently emerging, but gas prices, right? We have our own transportation department. We're very glad that we do, but again, that we provide the gas for that. So, budget priorities. As we would expect, it's all around the mission of the district, which is to maintain as much effectiveness for kids as we can. We have to do it costing less money, right? So that means trying to maintain the core of our mission, which is our programs. We can say this year we have not touched programs in any way. We have not had to make cuts to programs. We said that last year also. It was easier to say it last year. It was harder to, it's been harder to be able to say that this year, but we hope to be able to say that every year throughout the sequence, but each year it does get harder. The additional priorities, again, continuing to, because these are ongoing things operationally that we always have to do, capital projects, technology, and now we're getting into a slide since the preliminary budget presentation, and I will be quiet for a little bit and turn over to Mr. Shinty, our business administrator.
Thank you. So if you were here last month when we did the preliminary budget presentation, you would remember that we still needed a little over $314,000 to balance our budget. Our expenses were greater than our revenues at that point in time. So this slide shows you how we got to that point to be able to balance our budget. On the revenue side, we were able to make some adjustments, increase some revenue lines, our excess surplus, our monies that we received through SEMI, our miscellaneous revenue, and of course the decrease in state aid. The amount that they were taking from us was $153,000 less, so we were able to bring that additional revenue into the budget, which gave us $318,000 in additional revenue. And as you always remember, in previous years, we always constantly adjust the budget as we go through the process month by month. So obviously, we look at the revenue adjustments, and then we also look at the appropriation adjustments. On that side, we looked at the salary and the staffing, making adjustments for people leaving, people retiring, and whatnot. We were able to decrease our staffing costs by $115,000. The joint insurance fund final numbers came in. They came in $32,000 less. We made that adjustment. Then going back on the other side, our projected amount that we were going to have to pay for the students that are going to charter schools, that came in a little bit higher than we had projected. A little under $17,000 more, so we had to increase that line. And then the other thing with the rising energy costs with gasoline, natural gas, and electricity, we adjusted those lines accordingly and increased them by $136,000. So at the end, our appropriations actually increased by $4,684. So with the revenues going up at $318,000, the expenses going up by a little over $4,000, netted that we had the $314,000 additional monies to balance our budget. So that's how we got to the balanced budget. On this slide here, it's the same slide that we had in the last presentation, just with the numbers updated for what the expenses cost, the staffing, a little under $50 million, 49.4. The employee benefits at 14.8. Those two together make up the majority of our budget, as we always have denoted in previous presentations, 62% and 18%. A total of a little over 81% of our budget is in staffing. So that's the main driver of all of our costs in our budget. Then you have the PERS contributions that we have to make for some of the employees for their pension plans, which is $1.4 million. And then it goes on with all the other different areas of the budget: curriculum, special ed, the elementary schools, operations and transportation, clubs and activities, and then the percentage of the budget that they make up. Okay, on this slide here is basically letting you see again, it's the same as the slide we had last month, but updated with the tentative budget appropriations, and the comparison between the budget that we're working in now that was approved last May compared to the tentative budget that we're looking at for approval this May, where we are at this point. And then you can see what the increases are in the budget lines and what percentage of that line went up or down. And in most cases, the amounts have gone down. So back to Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Shinty. So going through some of the reductions in a little more detail here, non-staffing reductions, which we wish we could have all of our reductions come out of non-staffing. But as Mr. Shinty explained, roughly 82% of the budget goes towards staffing costs, so it's literally not possible to take the reductions just out of non-staffing areas, but we do try. So that includes steps such as reducing departmental funds, which we've done consecutively for years now, and our buildings continue to find creative ways to make do with less. And again, that's a testament to their resilience in that way. Transportation changes. So we anticipate about a $40,000 revenue amount. That's adjustable a bit, as Mr. Ritchie talked about. We do anticipate increased energy costs. Gas is a factor in that. One additional savings that's not really a financial, but is absolutely essential as a resource savings is we are always struggling to have enough bus drivers. So I've said it many times here. I'll just say it again. If it helps even just one person step up and want to become a bus driver with ETSD, we really could use it, and we will help, and we will finance every step of the way to get your license. It's a great team to be a part of. But by making some transportation changes, we're actually able to not just save some money, but win back bus driver capacity. So earlier this week, even, I had to send an email out just that there might be some bus delays. It was, depending on what convergence of factors there is, there have been a couple days this year where it was very, very, very tight. And kudos to our transportation department for always, maximizing that capacity to continue to be able to transport kids to school. So this area I talked about in the last presentation in February. It's converting 2 Crown Royal into a walker zone. Crossing guard already in place at the entrance to Rice. 52 students. Another area in the Rice zone, Doral, White Marsh, Lynx Way, and Majestic. At currently 3 students total, so it's not a lot, but again, there's already a crossing guard those students can walk out to. We have been in communication with the township throughout the past year, with the police department as well about, and they've done traffic safety studies that we've used in guiding our decisions on this, so we can pick the routes that they feel are safest to turn into walker zones. This one affects Beeler and DES. So the west of, it's the part of, not in Country Farms, right? Because Greenbrook goes from 70 into Country Farms. This is the part of Greenbrook that is between Eastboro, Medford, and 70, and to the west of Greenbrook. Not many streets, 28 students, and they will walk to DES. There's a crossing guard already at Carlton and Windmere, and since this involves a school shift, it does carry with it the option for rising 5th graders and younger siblings to stay at Beeler in 22-23. This zone change is for students to go from Rice to MES. 91 students total. Again, the rising 5th graders and younger siblings have the option to stay at Rice in 22-23. The lighting here doesn't really, the image is a little bit dark, but we do post these presentations to our website. What you can't see from here is just little blue dots showing all the locations of the students to kind of give a sense of where folks live within Barton Run. One of the added features of these changes, so Rice, for example, is our largest elementary school. It's approaching 600 students. MES is about 425. So when you take, and it won't be all 91 in the first year, because of course some will be staying at Rice. The grade 5 and younger siblings have that choice, but eventually what that will do is equalize the populations of those 2 schools. Rice is absolutely at capacity. There is no room at Rice right now, and preschool does continue to grow all the time. MES, meanwhile, has the most capacity of any of our schools, and is the newest school, and actually has some additional beneficial features. It has the largest elementary classrooms of any school as well. And what that will do is, it will also, although it's not in the slide here, doesn't affect a lot of students, but it will let us, I did express this in one of my updates, it will let the kindergarten autism program, which is currently at Jaggard, shift to Rice, so that when students come up through the autism program in preschool, they don't have to change schools heading into kindergarten. They'll stay at Rice. That which frees up space at Jaggard, because Jaggard is also absolutely capacity. So what these shifts end up doing is freeing up space at Jaggard, freeing up space at Rice, freeing up space at Beeler, shifting students to DES and to MES where there is some space, and which provides opportunity for future possibilities such as full-day kindergarten, which I will talk about later in the presentation. Projected reductions. So if you remember this slide from last year, this slide last year was hard to look at. It had 40 positions on there last year. This year it has 8. 7 so far are positions, not people, because of retirements and vacancies. We hope that eventually we'll be able to have those two numbers, those two columns, fewer positions and retirements and vacancies, be the same number. And the way we get to those positions, so we're not quite there yet to be able to talk about specific positions. You know, last year it certainly proved true that there were a few positions that we thought we might have to cut and we didn't end up having to, and to have talked about them prematurely would have been needlessly negative for those folks. And we still have about a month and a half until the final budget presentation. I can say that those fewer positions are achieved mostly through class size increase, okay? And when I say class size increase, we are talking about no more than 1 student increased per grade in elementary. So like if 5th grade is 25 students, it goes to 26. Okay, so no more than 1 student increase in each grade or in any of the grades. We'll share more about that in the final presentation. I will also say that those increases put us exactly on par with surrounding districts. So when we go back in time to when our, before S2, right, before the state aid 7-year reduction sequence began, our class sizes were lower than surrounding districts. Okay, and it was because we had funding partly based on having a higher enrollment than we did. As that funding has dropped, we increased class size a bit last year. We were still below average last year. Increased a little bit this year. Now we're on par. But that's where the bulk of those 8 positions come from. Steps that we considered and did not use, cutting educational programs, and then a bunch of other things there that we looked at last year as well. Some of those items are larger than others. If you see, you know, like school consolidation was, you know, that is, would be a humongous step that we would not want to have to take and do not have to take. But we do look at, we turn over all stones, right, as we go about this process. So other steps that are being taken, sale of property. So we just did get approval. If you remember, we talked about this last year. It took almost 12 months of bureaucratic hurdling. Mr. Riscinti persistently going over every single hurdle, but we did recently receive approval from the state to sell the Country Farms property, which we're very excited about. We already had approval to sell the Hanover property, and we are, you know, in our budget for this 22-23 school year, we have included that $600,000 anticipated from the sales of those properties. So, like when we talk about positions that would have to be cut, there are $600,000 fewer of positions that have had to be cut because we are including that property sale in our 22-23 budget, which means that for the following year, we would have to find an additional it's a one-time infusion of money, right? So it means that the following year we have to find an additional $600,000 in cuts, but we didn't have to do it this year. Bus advertising, lots of room to grow there. Okay. Activity fee increase, again, some districts wait for a couple years and then do a big increase all at once. We tend to take the approach of incremental and predictable. So we predictably increase a bit each year. Communication advocacy with state officials. Just to give you an example, that includes, this week began the opportunities for folks to testify at the state, Senate, and Assembly budget hearings. So myself, Mrs. Ryan, our board president, Mr. Kanthan, our board vice president, we will be testifying next week at those budget hearings, talking about not just our needs here, which are obviously very important, but you know, there's a broader context of need within our entire state for funding, so that's just one example of the advocacy that we do. All right, full-day kindergarten for all. So this will be the #1 district goal for 22-25. Okay, so that's a 3-year sequence. Our goals, our district goals that are elapsing at the end of this year were 2019-2022 district goals, and then begins the next 3-year sequence. So this goal, which is a humongous undertaking, the details of which we are still working on, and I will be sharing more when we get to the May 5th final budget presentation, because it's all interconnected. You know, we talk about a budget presentation for 22-23. It's absolutely connected with budgetary planning for a 3-year district goal. So this will not be a goal that, like full-day K will not be starting in September, this coming September, okay? The planning for that is much more extensive, but at least this gives a time frame within which it will happen, and as I said, more details we will be infusing into the May 5th board presentation. What I can share for now, just as we're thinking about this, total estimated cost, that $300,000 in one-time costs mainly involves room renovations and roughly about $1,800,000 in recurring annual costs. A lot of the biggest part of which comes from the loss of full-day K tuition revenue. Full-day K is a cost-neutral program, so the tuition is set at a rate so that it pays for itself, but that amount totals $1 million roughly each year, which we will have to make up in other ways. We're excited about this goal. It's a fantastic goal. And the timing is challenging, but the goal is worth it to you know, figure it out and make it happen. And I appreciate the, you know, all the work so far from our board, from our cabinet, from our community to bring this goal into the light for us all to talk about and work towards. General fund revenue comparison. Mr. Shinty, it is your microphone again. Thank you.
I get all the exciting slides with all the numbers on it, the boring stuff. So this is the general fund, the revenue side of our budget, similar to the slide that we presented last month with the tentative revenues in the second column updated to match the revenues that I previously showed on the slide but that were increased. and then giving you the comparisons between the current budget and the tentative budget, what the increases or decreases are in the different revenue lines and what percentage it increased or decreased. So basically, the miscellaneous revenue went up a little bit. The budgeted fund balance other, that went up a little bit as well. That was due to the excess surplus, the addition we were able to bring into the budget. And the state aid line, our state aid got cut less than we anticipated, so that number went up by 150,000. So instead of losing 1.6 million, we lost 1.498. only 1.5 million, but better than losing what we thought we were going to lose. So that gets us to our total revenues at the bottom. On this slide here, same as the slide we used last month, what would the revenues look like if we had no tax levy increase in the first column, if we only had a 1% tax levy increase, which is the second column? The third column is the 2% where we're at. The fourth column is 2% with any waivers or bank cap, which there are none this year, so that's the same as the 2%. And then the last column, which is the tentative numbers, which is the 2% that we're allowed to increase our budget. On this slide here is where we compare our revenues against our appropriations for our tentative budget. And going back to the previous slide, if we did go with a zero tax levy increase, which would be the first column, how much more money we would have to cut from the budget to get to that point? It would be $1.2 million. If we only had a 1% tax levy increase, we would have to cut an additional $635,000 from the budget. And then the last four columns are all the same because we were increasing our tax levy by the 2%. That gives us our balanced budget, so our revenues match our appropriations. This here is the tax levy calculation slide. It did change a little bit from last month. We got the final numbers for our for the 22 tax levy ratables. They are up a little bit from the previous year, so when we make that adjustment to the calculation last month, when you come down to the proposed increase per average household, last month it was $30.05 a year. With the additional revenues brought into the calculation, the increases dropped to $29.18 on an average household, which per year, which is an average home assessed at $272,266.
Thank you, Mr. Ashinti. So we're almost there. This is a penultimate slide. 2 more dates left on this timeline. After tonight, we send the budget to the county, and then big date, May 5th, final budget approval, special meeting back in here. All right. Any questions from the board? I'll let everybody
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I have one question, actually more of like a clarification, if it's okay. Sometimes, like with everything that we do, it gets like the translation sometimes isn't there, because people will hear like board retreats, district goals, and it sounds like the board goes on a board retreat, and it sounds like we go to the woods and do trust falls. And it doesn't sometimes clarify the importance of what we do. And sometimes I don't know if if the clarity is there of how important a district goal is to us. Like sometimes people hear something like, oh, it's a district goal, and it's just something they're putting out there on paper, but they have no intentions of doing something like that. I was just hoping you could kind of like clarify a little bit the importance of what we did on, or what the board did, I should say, on March 5th. And also on top of that, that's the right date, right? March 5th, was that? Yeah, on March 5th. And then on top of that, what's the significance of something being a district goal?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. So, and I will, and what's great about that question, especially related to the full day K goal, is sometimes a goal might be operational, it might be academic, it might be staff related, it might be focused on a specific lane within the larger district process, but that goal is all lanes. You know, it really is. So everything I just said, staffing, academic, operations. So to put that into place and to plan for that takes a lot of time. In fact, you know, just thinking about the board retreat that you mentioned, we ran out of time that day, you know, and we will probably run out of time many other times talking about that goal. And that's a good thing, because it means that we're walking around 360 degrees around the topic to see every angle and account for all of that. So, and the fact that we will have 3 goals. We do have 3 goals. There's only one goal that's being talked about tonight, and that is the full day kindergarten goal. And I think that is a reflection of our emphasis as a board and a district on making that goal that very complex, costly but worth it goal happen.
I know from past, and just to kind of reiterate what you're saying, as we've done district goals throughout the years, I mean, it's almost like a heavy focus of who we are. You know, that's a kind of a, you know, it becomes sort of a mantra of what our intentions tend to be. And I just wanted to be clear in that aspect that we don't make district goals lightly. And it's not something we just throw on a piece of paper and just let it go. And I wanted that to be clear, because district goals sometimes aren't like where a corporation will throw something out there as like, well, this is the goal, what our company's going to be, and then they change gears in like a year. I just wanted to kind of prove that point, that this is a big deal for us.
Definitely. Boldface underline. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Seeing no further questions, I'm going to turn off the mic.
Grab some water. You good? Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan.
So now we're going to go into public comment. Just in case anyone is not aware, we have 2 public comments. The first public comment section is for what is on the agenda. And the second public comment, which happens later in the evening, is for anything that you wish to discuss. The meeting will now be open to the public, referencing agenda items only. However, if your questions pertain to student or personnel items or negotiations, we ask that you see the superintendent after the meeting, since we do not discuss these matters in public. We ask that you limit your comments, please, to 3 minutes per person. It is also crucial that you give us your name, address before you speak up, and to also limit your comments to 1 time per public comment section. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Please go ahead and step up to the microphone. And just state your name and address for us.
Jason Elstein, 4 Lower Lane, Barton Run. Okay. So you touched on the redistricting, and I think you were all in my wife's email about a month ago when we were blindsided by this redistricting, when it was buried in the second paragraph of a weekly email. Since that time, I had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Smith. I thought it was a good conversation, but nothing came of it. So now I want to speak to the board about this. And let me just say, I'm very familiar with this process. My father was assistant superintendent at Delran for 20 years. My mother was in education for 30 years. We're very familiar with how this works. My point on how this has happened with the redistricting revolves around children going from 3rd grade to 4th grade in Barton Run, of which there's a handful of them, of which, if this was handled in a different, more logical way, and when the data was seen in this neighborhood, my contention is that cut line should have included 3rd into 4th with the option to stay at Rice. Going one step further, a contingency could have been on that in regards to busing. My child, we don't bus. He's an only child. There is no sibling. I know the other families affected with this in this grade. There's about 5 or 6 of them. If more lake work was done on this and the data was looked at for that grade of your 91 number that was up there, when it's about 6 in this grade, and if you reached out to those families and said, if we considered the option of grandfathering this with the contingency of no busing in the future year, would you even stay? Your grand total you would have received is maybe 2 or 3 kids. That's not opening up a classroom. And when we spoke, you spoke about unknowns, the unknown of who's going to move into King's Grant the next year. Don't know. But you know what's a known? His life's going to be screwed up by being pulled from Rice. And this is after virtual schooling. This is after the masking and the social distancing. Just gets a sense of normalcy. And because of your goal, which I understand, and about 5 or 6 kids in Barton Run, he's going to get uprooted, and it's going to accomplish absolutely nothing for your goal, other than the arbitrary date of your goal was to be completed by September of 2023. So, more logical step is, you see there's 5 or 6 families that would all be affected out of your 91 number up there. You reach out, you say, if we gave this opportunity for this grade, and with the notion there will be no busing offered in Barton Run after this school year, would you even want to stay? You'll get about 2 yeses. That's one of them, right there. So we've taken all the appropriate steps. We put this in writing logically. I've had a logical conversation, and now I'm asking the board members, and I thank Ms. Everhart for the response to the email, because that was the only one we got. I ask you to look at this again, logic, see it from my point of view, our point of view. Your number doesn't change, your goal doesn't change, your classroom space doesn't change, nothing changes. What changes is he gets uprooted for nothing, for you guys accomplishing nothing. Because if it was looked at harder, the data, with logic and common sense, you'd say, if my cut line was 3rd grade, we're freeing up this much space. If my cut line was 4th grade, we're freeing up this much space. Nothing changes on your end. That's it. That's all I have to say. I ask this to be considered. I really would appreciate a response back in writing. You have our email address. Tyler, do you have anything you want to say? You can say something. You have your 3 minutes.
Oh, sir, okay. State your name for me, okay, would you? Because we're going to, at the 3-minute mark, so we're going to restart. Okay.
Tyler Alstein.
Okay.
I want to stay at Rice because, first of all, we don't even have a chance to pick where we want to go. And you're just making our decision to go somewhere else. We should be able to pick where we should go. And that's why I think that we should be able to stay at Rice.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Thank you, Mr. Alstein. Any other public comment regarding agenda items only? Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Hello, Francesca Stranik's address is 5302 Baltimore Drive. My comment is on the full-day kindergarten, and this comes from not me. This is
Excuse
from.
me, I'm gonna pause right there. Full-day kindergarten is not on the agenda.
Oh, is the agenda not everything we saw slides on? Like
No.
if I have a bus coming or transportation, it's not? Okay. All right, so I'll wait then. Got it.
It's in the second public comment. You can come back. Sorry. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, We're going to close that portion of the meeting. There will be another public comment section at the end. So at this point, we're going to move forward with the approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve items 6.1, 6.2. Do I have a motion? Ms. Capello? Second? Mr. Lanzalata, thank you. Any questions or comments regarding the minutes? Okay, seeing none, let's go to a roll call, please.
Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart?
Yes.
Mr. Fisicaro?
Yes to 6-1, abstain from 6-2, 6-3.
Okay. Mr. Canfin? Yes. Mr. Lanzalata?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
At this point, we're going to move on to item 7, the superintendent's report and administrative items. Do I have a motion to approve 7.1 through 7.10? Mr. Fisicaro, Mr. Canfin. Before we get into questions and comments, I am going to give the floor to Dr. Smith. Hopefully you took some water.
Yes.
You're good. Okay,
Thank
here
you.
you go.
Thank you. And because of the budget presentation, my comments are short tonight, but I do want to highlight 2 items among those in my area. The first is the ETEA 2022-2025 contract, which is on the agenda tonight, and what a tremendous positive that is to celebrate. It's an example of walking together, and among other facets, this contract provides peace of mind for our paraprofessionals who have traditionally received benefits by preserving those benefits for the duration of this 3-year contract, as those benefits would otherwise expire on January 1st, 2023. And these benefits have been a topic of much discussion and heartache for a long time, and this contract brings some helpful closure and highlights the commitment of everyone to craft a solution. And just want to say thank you to the members of the negotiations team from both the board and ETEA. Secondly and lastly, I'd like to highlight the resolution that's on tonight's agenda, establishing our district as a stigma-free zone for mental health and mental illness awareness. And this is a county initiative. This follows on the heels of School Wellness Week last week, when wellness activities took place throughout our schools. Mental, physical, and emotional health for everyone is a focus every week here in our district. And we all know that youth mental health was an area of challenge everywhere prior to the pandemic, and only more since. And the mental health of adults as well is under strain, based on many available metrics. A related component is the increasingly clear connection between youth mental health and social media use. Among the many things that could be said on that topic, as the weather gets warmer, all the more reason for all of us, young and old, to look for opportunities to go outside and put our phones to the side. I would encourage all families to take advantage of the tremendous extracurricular opportunities in our district, which can often be a main reason why kids want to come to school. Not all districts are as fortunate as we are in being able to offer those activities, especially at the elementary level. And it is our staff, first and foremost, who make that possible. And just want to thank all of our staff who do make those extracurricular opportunities possible for our kids, as it is such a vital component of that holistic health that our schools try to provide emotionally, physically, and socially. And that thus ends my remarks. Thank you, Mrs. Ryan.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Any questions or comments to the superintendent's report? Okay, seeing none, let's go to a roll call, please, Mr. Rishinti.
Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart?
Yes.
Mr. Fisicaro?
Yes.
Mr. Canfin?
Yes.
Mr. Lanzalata?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving to item 8, curriculum and instruction. I need a motion to approve items 8.1 through 8.5. Do I have a motion? Ms. Everhart, second. Mr. Fisicaro. Any questions or comments regarding curriculum and instruction? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart?
Yes.
Mr. Fizacaro?
Yes.
Mr. Catton?
Yes.
Mr. Lancelota?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving to item 9, finance and operations. I need a motion to approve items 9.1 through 9.16. Do I have a motion? Mr. Canthan. Number 2, Ms. Capello. Any questions or comments pertaining to finance and operation? Okay, Mr. Canthan.
Yeah, I just wanted to, we did it at the front, but I just wanted to thank the Indiana Temple Association again for their donation, specifically Dr. Vanita Ganju. I have the privilege of working with Dr. Ganju at the Human Rights Advisory Council, and it seems as if though everything she does is geared towards service and towards our children, and I think her daughter receiving an award tonight was a nice confluence, so thanks.
Ms. Everhart?
I'll be brief, but I just want to say good job to the administration and the rest of the staff who had a hand in paring down the budget even more and working diligently to present a very efficient tentative budget. So thank you to everyone who collaboratively worked to bring that to the table. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart?
Yes.
Mr. Fizacaro?
Yes.
Mr. Catton?
Yes.
Mr. Lancelota?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving to item 10, personnel. I would like a motion to approve items 10.1 through 10.9. Do I have a motion? Mr. Fizacaro? Mr. Lanzelota? Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding personnel? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call, please.
Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart?
Yes.
Mr. Fizacaro?
Yes.
Mr. Catton?
Yes.
Mr. Lancelota?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Moving to item 11, policy. I need a motion to approve items 11.1 and 11.2. Do I have a motion? Ms. Capello? Second. Mr. Fizacaro? Any questions or comments pertaining to personnel? I would just like to say this is second reading, so a lot of times these policies are mandated, so there's really not much to discuss. They're made that we don't really have much of a choice. We just accept what the policy is and what the change is. So I just wanted to put that on record for those of you who just think we're running through these policies, but they're mandated by the state, so I just wanted to put that out there. But thank you. No questions or comments. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
Mrs. Everhart?
Yes.
Mr. Fizacaro?
Yes.
Mr. Catton?
Yes.
Mr. Lancelota?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to committee reports. Do any committee chairs have a report they wish to share? That's like a rhyme. Mr. Lanzelota.
So, the Community Outreach Committee met with the Evesham Education Foundation 3 times this month, all for their work with a successful casino night, a fundraiser that was held on February 25th. It raised approximately $32,000, and that money goes directly to the school and the students. Just a special thanks goes out to all the members of the Evesham Education Foundation, especially the president, Scott Zielinski, for his hard work. He put together the whole fundraiser, but not only the board there, but also the volunteers who worked at the fundraiser, the sponsors, the attendees, and the local businesses who donated the food and supplies. For those of you that don't know much about the Evesham Education Foundation, it's an unbelievable organization, and they just hold fundraisers. A lot of the board members don't even have kids in the district, which is awesome. And they're always looking for volunteers for help. They're putting together fundraisers. Their next fundraiser is a golf outing on June 6th. So if you're interested in volunteering or interested in going to one of these fundraisers, please look at the website eveshameducationfoundation.org. And then also we met with the MRC one time this month. There's registration for a lot of summer camps for those parents that are looking for their kids to do some stuff in the summertime. And Ms. Everhart will talk about the Evesham Town Council.
Okay, I'll be brief since I'm sick, but I just wanted to say I went to the council meeting last night, and they did an excellent presentation for Women's History Month to our Cherokee female basketball team and also to the Cherokee female cross-country team. It was incredibly stellar to see all those young women up there, which were Evesham students at one time. And the mayor did a wonderful job commending them on their efforts as athletes and how that the goals and the drive that they bring to their sport, that they will bring that to leadership roles, in their future life. It was very empowering, it really was, to see all those young women in the room. Great job. They also received, in addition to a special acknowledgement for special Women's History Month, they all received a Community Impact Award also. So great job. And also wanted to say that it was so encouraging to hear all of the programs that are being reinstated back at the township level now that COVID is kind of waning. We heard from Monica Vandenberg, who talked about all the senior programs and all the busing that they're providing to the seniors. And we heard about some social events that are happening at the Blue Barn and events that are happening at the Gibson House. So it was very encouraging. If you want to find out anything more that's happening with the township, please feel free to check out their website. And one other thing I wanted to say is that we are partnering with the township to put on the art show in person, so that's wonderful. This is piggybacking to my community curriculum committee assignment. We're having the art show beginning on May 16th, and it will run for 2 weeks. There won't be a gala like there has been in the past, but we're going to have art in person presented at the Township Building. So great to see these steps back to normalcy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Everhart. Any other committee? Okay, Mr. Canton.
Yep, so a bit on the Township Human Rights Advisory Council meeting that happened last week. There's a couple of events that are happening within the next few months. There's the World Cultural Day on May 22nd. There's the Juneteenth event on June 19th. There is the Children's Book Drive for K through 6 with the organization Hugs. That's running until April 17th. And then the Evesham Wellness Expo is going to be on May 14th. Most of these township events have a heavy focus on kids. I know Dr. Smith and I have been at a couple of them in the past, and if that was too fast, I will talk to Dr. Smith so we can get them all in Friday updates, so it's not just me rambling. But that's it from the Human Rights Advisory Council side, and then, because Chairman Megan isn't here, I'll say something about finance. You guys basically saw all the work that goes in to our Finance Committee every month is talking about those items, so I just wanted to commend the Finance Committee, Mrs. Knoll, Mr. Megan, and Mr. Fizicaro for all the hard work they're doing to put the budgets together. It culminates sort of this month and last month, but there's still obviously ongoing things that we'll talk about over the next 2 months to further refine the budget. So looking forward to that conversation as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Canton. Anyone else have a question or comment or committee report? Okay, seeing none. Right now, we're going to move into old business. There is no old business. There is no new business, so we're going to keep moving along. But I need a motion to close out old business, new business, or no? Okay, then I'll move right along to public comment. The meeting will now be open to the public, referencing any items of interest. However, if your question or comments pertain to litigation, student or personnel items, or negotiations, we ask that you see the superintendent after the meeting, since we do not discuss these matters in public. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes per person, and that this section is meant for 1 comment per person. And I just wanted to also state that this is public comment, not meant or intended for public discussion. Anyone wish to speak? Come up to the microphone, state your name, address.
Hello, Sam Martello, 20 Buckley Lane. So if I heard you correctly, to discuss a student specifically, we should wait till after the meeting to do that?
Yes, you can talk to Dr. Smith after the meeting to discuss an individual student. We can't talk about an individual student in public.
Okay. Well, since I'm here, I'll use my time just to say, you know, we really appreciated how the school district and the board navigated COVID. It was all new, and really think you balance safety with providing an education for the kids, you know, which they desperately needed. I know my kids desperately needed it. So we appreciate that. So, and we'll talk.
Thank you, Mr. Martello. Appreciate the kind words. Anyone else wish to speak? Come on up.
Hello, Francesca Stranix, 5302 Baltimore Drive. I was going to make a comment for Anthony Stranix, who's like the father of our children. Can I make his comment as a separate person, or can I just use this for one topic, just for me?
It's usually one person,
Okay,
like
so
one
then I'm
comment.
just going to put this together for
Okay.
like added expenses for myself and my household. And that would be the bus routes, which I have emailed about, and the full-day kindergarten expense. So the bus route is that every student can only have one bus, and that was new since COVID. They were actually awarded 2 addresses until just recently, and the feedback that I was given was that it was COVID-related or staffing-related or bus-related. From at least 2 of the slides I saw this evening, we are increasing walkers and increasing our income, or I guess decreasing the cost of the buses. I have 3 children. They're all different drop-offs at different schools, and I'm out of zone for one of the schools, and the other is a preschool. But so I'm spending like 2 hours in the car, and with increased gas prices, the income of our household is not the same for the kid's registered address and for my address. So full-day kindergarten, we have 2 addresses supporting, like each address would qualify for 1 part-time kindergarten. So if we have 1 student with 2 addresses paying taxes, is it possible for that to qualify as 2 half-days and he gets full-day kindergarten, especially because it looks like we're just 1 or 2 years out from this being included. And it would allow us to continue to work, which is the income that we would pay for the gases in the cars to drive the kids. And so whether we could have a second address for one of my children, which would be helpful, that's already on an existing stop, and it's already an existing bus, and I can't imagine buses are at full capacity every day. So I'm just talking about 1 student on an existing bus stop, so not like adding a bus or adding a stop. And then the full-day kindergarten comment, would 2 households qualify for full day to be paid for? So.
Thank you, Mrs. Stranick.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. Good evening. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Krista Ainelli. My address is 152 Thornwood Drive. Tonight, I would like to voice my concerns and disappointment that full-day kindergarten inclusion program continues to be an unavailable placement for students that are classified. My son will be starting kindergarten next year, and it is anticipated that he will qualify for continued special education services. I was prepared to pay the full $5,500 tuition for my son to attend full-day kindergarten. He has already been accepted into the full-day program in his neighborhood school, and I have secured a spot by submitting the necessary $500 deposit. However, now that I am anticipating an inclusion placement, his learning day will be cut in half. It does not seem to make sense that if he were a general education tuition-based kindergartner, he could attend a full day of learning, but now that he was found eligible for special education services, my son's school day is only a half day. Eastham Township School District is aware of the benefits of a full-day kindergarten program, as it is already an option for both general education students and students with special needs. In fact, a kindergarten inclusion class is the only placement where a full-day program is not an option. You can understand my frustration in learning that full day is an option for typically developing students students placed in a multi-disabled kindergarten class, and students with autism, but not an option for students placed in an inclusive classroom. I feel this is not providing an equitable education and is a violation of the free, appropriate public education students with exceptionalities are entitled to. It is also unfair that Easham special education students may never attend their neighborhood schools because of lack of inclusion programs. I was informed my son's half-day kindergarten inclusion would be at Rice Elementary. This is the farthest school from our house, which means a very long bus ride. And now my son is unable to attend kindergarten at Beeler alongside his neighborhood typical peers. This will be detrimental to my son's self-esteem and social and emotional well-being. Not to mention he is isolated from his neighborhood friends, and in the future may not attend the same school as his siblings. Special education students should not be singled out based on classification and be subjected to long bus rides or denied access to their neighborhood schools. Next Thursday, Easham Township District is hosting an all-in Disabilities Awareness Night, in which the event has a goal to promote awareness and foster an inclusive environment, supporting all individuals to meet their full potential as valued community members. I find it ironic that this event promotes the very thing Easham special education programs are lacking, an all-inclusive environment at each grade level at each school.
You're at the 3-minute mark.
Okay. I'll just summarize.
Okay.
I just feel like a more up-to-date model should be in place for our special education students, one that does not isolate or discriminate against special education students to go to certain schools or cut their learning time in half to save money. I hope that we can work together to continue to provide a consistent, fair, and appropriate learning environment that matches that of a general education student for all special education students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Einelli. Okay, if you could state your name and address, please.
Yes, can you hear me? Dorian Carlton, 130 Deerfield Avenue, and I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the board for your time and energy on the full-day kindergarten issue. I appreciate that not only do you listen to parents and residents, but you're moving to take action to remedy this. So thank you for making it board goal number 1, and I look forward to those continued updates and seeing it come to fruition. Thanks again.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Please state your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shelja. I'm from Dion. So I just want to start off by acknowledging the traditional landowners throughout Northern America and recognize the continuing connections to the land, waters, and culture, the land on which this building stands on and that you all are meeting on. It's part of the Lenni Lenape people homeland. I'd like to pay our respects to the people's past, present, and future. I have stood up here many times and I have said that to you all. I'll get to that in a second, but I just wanted to begin by congratulating you, Ms. Lee and Mr. Canton, for your president of the board and vice president, and a warm welcome to Jamie Lee from Dion. So for those who don't know, Dion is a 501c3. We are based here in Malton. We are a Women of Colour-led organisation. We're dedicated to advocating for racial, social and economic justice within the New Jersey public school system and our community. So we were founded January of last year, and we like to connect the underserved communities with educators, politicians and others to have powerful conversation that leads to real change. So there are two things that I have come to speak on tonight. So one was the land acknowledgement that I don't believe the board is doing still. I'm pretty sure I came here a year ago and I first introduced that. So I'd love to see that happening, and I'd love to see our school board leading by example. Our local council do it, the Human Rights Advisory Committee of Easham also do it, and that by setting the example, it's going to trickle down to our schools. Why is Indigenous land acknowledgement important? Dion is more than happy to present on that to the board and to any other school administrators. We have prepared a presentation and we've consulted with Indigenous people on how to do that. So that's one thing. And I guess, you know, we started our relationship and our connection about a year ago. And I just a nice reminder, I guess, in 2020, December is when we connected with Mr. Canton over a shared vision for a truly inclusive and equitable school district. And the fact that Mr. Canton was the first, which we've discussed before, the first Asian member of the school board in the history of the school board. And one progress is being made, right? So two, the pace of progress is not keeping up with the community and societal needs. So when we continue to speak with you, and something that Dion has done upon ourselves is we actually have been working with legislatures, and we drafted a bill with a senator's office recently on mandatory Indigenous curriculum for K-12 schools in New Jersey, and that bill was actually introduced on Monday. So it might be a great time for us to get ahead and start that process. We are a fierce group who is determined to get this into our community because, as you all know, being residents here, that Indigenous appropriation is a real problem in our area and it needs to be addressed.
You're at the 3-minute mark? Okay, just a second.
So my second reason that I'm here is we would like to talk about I guess we support Evesham Township putting forward the full-day kindergarten, and I just wanted to, I know a lot of people have come up and have told you data and have told you arguments and reasons why it should be free, why it should be available due to access. I kind of also want to just sort of touch on the racial disparities as well. And I understand my time is almost up. If you need me to sit down and come back, I can do that.
Well, that's not allowed either, but is there someone else that could read the rest of yours? We would love to hear it, but just to be fair for everyone, to make it 3 minutes. So.
I'm going to continue because I feel like this is a very important point. And the important point is that children who have a developmentally appropriate full-day experience, especially for students who are disadvantaged backgrounds.
Can you just summarize and wrap up? Because we've held everyone else to 3 minutes, so we can't make an exception for you. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Any questions or comment from the board? I'm going to close public comment at this time, but are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Any board members' announcements? Okay, I just have a few things to say. Number one, I just wanted to, per usual, give a shout out to all the PTA and PTO presidents. They're doing an amazing job. They said that it is so great to see all of their students back in school, being able to offer activities and things like that. So they are on board with moving ahead and getting more and more activities at the school. So it is great to hear. They did an amazing job all through COVID, so it's nice to have some normalcy back in the classrooms with the children. I wanted to show some appreciation for the board as a whole. I hope that your nomination of Anish and I as leaders hasn't disappointed you so far, but we also wanted to thank you for giving up a Saturday morning to come in and do some very, very important board business that we don't get a lot of time to do throughout the month. So I appreciate you. I'm sure Anish, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure he appreciates you as well. And as far as all the administrative staff, thank you also for giving up your Saturdays and coming in. And I'm super proud of our negotiation team, Dennis Megan, Anish, myself, and all of the council and cabinet that stood through meeting after meeting after meeting with only one goal, was to get the children of Evesham and the staff of Evesham the best deal that we could and just move forward in a positive way. So I wanted to thank our team, especially, for giving 100% of your time and effort. If there are no other comments from the board, Mr. Canthan, go ahead, of course.
Thanks. Second, what President Ryan said about the rest of the board, but also, I think last year when we had the Miracle Monday, we called it, about the ESSER 3 funding come through, it went to speak about the strength of advocacy within our town. I found it to be a great surprise last night when I saw that the Council of Evesham Township went ahead and passed a resolution urging our state legislature to look into full-day kindergarten. We're obviously in favor of that, and also not only does our board goal say that, but to an advocacy standpoint, I know Dr. Smith already mentioned that him, myself, and President Ryan will be at the NJ legislature next week to advocate on the same. So in the past, we've seen that when the community comes together in all facets, we're able to get these things done, so I hope that continues. Additionally, for people making public comments, everything you guys say, like normally we see typed sheets. If you guys want to send them to us, you can. We're able to share that with elected leaders up the chain. I realize we're the ones you guys are able to see on a weekly or monthly basis, but there are other people who could hear that on the state level. So if you guys have comments, if you guys have facts, figures, statements that are already typed, feel free to email them to us and we can keep that advocacy going.
Okay, thank you very much. And at this point, I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Fizikera very quickly raises his hand. Second, Mrs. Everhart. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
you.